Hey everyone, this is Corinne Lafont, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from Trinidad and Tobago, the lovely island in the Caribbean. I don't know where I could be at any point in time. This is why I always say that on my show. Some time ago, when I did this show, I was in Jamaica. I could be anywhere in the world doing this. I have to tell you where I am. I don't have to, but I choose to. And I always start my show being grateful. So we're on the show Between the Lines. I forgot to mention that. That's the name of my show, Between the Lines. And I am so thankful to see another day. I'm so thankful to be here, to still be whole. I'm still working on being whole though, but I'm just thankful for being whole. It's always a work in progress. Yeah, we need to be able to work on ourselves and look at everything that happens to us, for us, with us, about us, in us as a lesson. Yeah, always ask the universe, what's the lesson you're trying to teach me? Help me to understand. And just wait for the answers. It's going to come to you. So it's an overcast day today, but I know in no time at all it's going to change and it's going to be hot and people are going to be complaining. I don't. I mean, kind of somewhat, but I'm grateful for whether it's hot or whether it's overcast, whether it's raining. I just enjoy everything about the weather and what has been given to us that we experience. Yeah. So I have with me a beautiful lady today. She's very sweet too. I mean, I can't imagine, given the name that she has. I had to ask her prior to the show if that's how she pronounces her name. And she's like, yeah. So clearly she's very sweet. Her name is Anne Sugar, not Sugar, like I said. It may have been, and it kind of sounds like sugar too, but just a nice gourmet way of saying sugar, Sugar, you know. But, but she's Anne Sugar, so it's Sugar, just like how you spell sugar. And let me tell you a quick bit about her. But what we're going to talk about today is balancing leadership with empathy. Balancing leadership with empathy. And you may be thinking, is that possible? We're going to find out today. And how is it possible and how you could do it if you're in a leadership role or you're working towards a leadership role, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're running a business for someone else, you're corporate, whatever you are. We're all leaders and we have the makings of leadership in all of us. So let me tell you a bit about Anne. So Anne Sugar is an executive coach and speaker who has advised top leaders at companies, including TripAdvisor, you may know that name, of course, Sanofi Genzyme is that, I'm not so sure if I pronounce that correctly, and Havas, and serves as the executive coach for Harvard Business. She serves as an executive coach for Harvard Business School Executive Education and has guest lectured at MIT. Prior to becoming an executive coach more than a decade ago, she doesn't look that way. I don't know, these people on my show tend to lie a lot at their age. And served as a senior leader in the advertising industry, where she oversaw a team of 75 employees as SVP of Media and Digitals. She managed media planning for Fortune 500 clients, including General Motors, Federal Express, or FedEx, as you would say, and Delta. She draws on her extensive management experience as well as her in-depth training and coaching methodology to advise senior executives and high performers transitioning into leadership roles. And when you look behind her, you see a wealth of knowledge in the form of books behind her. So clearly, she knows a little bit more, just a little bit more than we do, that I'm sure she's going to be willing to share. So, Anne, welcome to Between the Lines.
Oh, Corinne, thank you so much for your kind introduction.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And if you don't mind, as we start, you made me think about something when you were talking about gratitude.
Yeah, and I tend to do that to my guest.
I'm sorry?
I tend to do that to my guest.
Oh, no, I think it is, I loved hearing you say that because, so let me take that to a business perspective for a second.
Sure.
And you were talking about what you're grateful for and this beautiful narrative of that. And I think it gets to narratives, and we can talk about that too when we talk about the balance of leadership and empathy. Mm-hmm. But we all tell ourselves these stories, right? And you just told this amazing story of what you're grateful for. So many senior executives that I coach, they tell themselves these stories before they go into a meeting, griping in their head. Oh, I got to deal with, Joe today, and it's going to be a rough meeting.
Yeah.
And that narrative sets the stage
Yeah.
for the meeting to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going in, well, you know what? Maybe Joe has had a rough time at X. I'm going to demonstrate for him the value of my my marketing recommendation today.
Yeah.
So I really coach leaders about what is the story that you tell? What is the story that you tell yourself? Because it's really important to think about positive intent.
Yeah.
And that kind of marries with gratitude, but the positive intent of that we're all here to do a good job in this meeting, instead of I'm putting on my armor and I'm ready to go.
Ready to fight, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, ready to fight. We're all here to just do our best. We're all here to do our best. And we have to realize that we all don't know everything. Even though you have all those books behind you, that doesn't mean to say you have consumed all of them and you know everything ad nausea and you're just a walking book yourself. And no, there are things that you don't know, and there are things that I don't know. And hence the reason for this show. Yeah, hence the reason for this show, of course, to help educate people and enlighten them and help them to be more aware. And not only that, to help them to ask more questions. So it helps people to say, I never thought of that. I wonder about this, or I wonder about that. So more information helps you to seek more answers, ask more questions. And so, you must be a seeker. And so, and before being a seeker, or even while being a seeker, you must be able to accept who you are. Accept that you are enough. I'm not saying that to bemoan or demean anyone, but accept who you are and know that you don't know everything, which is a very humbling experience. You don't know everything, but you're willing to learn. You're willing to find out. You're willing to seek the information to get it. And then before you know it, you know something that you didn't know before. And somebody else is going to be coming to you to ask you, what do you know about this? And you're able to help. So, I acknowledge my limitations. Let me use that word for want of a better word, but we are not limited by anything. If we want to find out something, we can. If we want to do something, we can. Stretch yourself, and like you said, set the tone. You're going into a meeting, you're going to get some business done, you're going out on the road, you're going to hang with friends. It doesn't matter what it is. You go with the intention to have fun, to get that business done, that this is what you're coming out with. You set that tone in your mind. You see it actually happening. You say it out to the universe, and it ends up being so once you're purposeful and intentional and emotionally attached to it.
Absolutely. And I think you said I just want to emphasize a couple of things that you said that I think are so amazing for leaders or just for us as humans, right? In the sense of we're all just learning. I love it as an executive coach. I learn all the time from my clients. I learn from the perspective of when I ask a question, I may not get the answer that I kind of thought I was going to get. And that makes me excited, right? Yeah. And I think too, a chairman of a very big company said to me once, and you bring this up, that you have to accept who you are and that you are good enough, right? And it's not going to be perfect all the time, but that basis gives you the chance to make those tough decisions, but also lead with empathy. And I think too, one last point, Corinne, that you brought up that I think is so important. People ask me all the time, well, so what can I do to be a successful leader? People ask me that all the time. And there isn't one really, big aha. It's some of the things that just are day in and day out that you talked about. Asking a good question, listening, and learning and reading. Now, of course, I haven't read all those books, but it's my library to help people. But the biggest thing that I can say for people is, how do you just keep wanting to learn and ask a good question? It's better to ask a good question than to have the answer in sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you may not even find what you're looking for in a book. It,
Absolutely.
yeah, you have to go within, you just have to sit quietly and the answers will come to you, or you will be led, or because you're silently seeking it with such sincerity, the answers will come to you, whether in a book, whether in a person, whether on the TV, whether on the radio. It
Mm-hmm.
is going to come to you. And you will be surprised. You mightn't even remember at the time. You might even forget about asking it. And you may forget. And suddenly you're like, hold on, I remember asking for that. It may be, it may be months or years later. And you may
Right.
say, wait a minute, I think I remember asking for that. And then, because it has happened to me, I totally forgot all about it because you have let it go. You have released it. You're not holding on, like you say, with armor and all these things. You just, as you want it, it may, you're not concerned about the time. Yeah, you say some things you may be in need of right now, but probably, as a human, the form that you're in, you feel you need it now, but you really don't need it now. And the universe is telling you, you don't need that now. I'm going to give you something else. Or I'm going to point you in a different direction. You need that in the next few months. And then in the next few months or next few years, everything starts falling into place on that particular thing. And you're like, wow, the timing, because we say that in its own time. When we need something, it will come in its own time. And that is just the timing. You did not need it at that particular time. You need it months later, years later. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that gets to a really interesting point. We want things to happen in a linear fashion,
Yeah.
right? You know, I will get this, it will lead to this promotion, to this
Yeah.
promotion.
Yeah.
But what I think when you're talking about too, and I also coach leaders on, is it's not always in the books. There's a lot about just having the experience. And I coached somebody one time and they wanted everything to be perfectly lined up and how they
Oh my
presented
God.
at this at this forum. And you know, the thing that I say to people, and it translates into life as well, leadership is messy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's messy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you live kind of in that mess? And that, you know, as you said, you may not get the promotion, you may not get the answer right now, whatever the goal you're seeking,
Mm-hmm.
but just kind of living in that mess and being okay and calm with that.
Nobody wants to live in mess. And I love how you said that. It's messy. And when you said it to me, and when you said it to those listening and those who will be listening, they're going to be like, what do you mean leadership is messy? Because we know we are academics. We know when we read it in the book, everything is linear. Everything seems all laid out and nice. You read it in black and white. It seems
Right.
perfect. And so when we study it and we come out with a degree and a master's and whatever else, we expect everything to flow in that fashion. It's supposed to go this way. When I do this, it's supposed to go this way. But hello, please, it doesn't work that way. You're dealing with the dynamics of people. You're dealing with the dynamics of their circumstances, their life situation, because we're talking empathy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, and these are things that people are not going to come out in the organization and tell you, well, I'm bankrupt right now. I just lost my house. People have pride. They may be embarrassed. They, ashamed to say whatever, or there's a death, or they just found out their child, this or that. There could be a number of things. You just don't know. People are just worried over the slightest things that they really shouldn't be worried about, but that's just how they are made up or they see the world. So, you just don't know. And you're dealing with a bunch of people from all different backgrounds. We're talking about race, we're talking about culture, we're talking about socialization, we're talking about education, what school, all of these things influence us in some way or form that turn us into who we end up being or who we choose to be. And so when you come into an organization, there's a plethora of all of that working within us that a boss or a manager, whoever has to deal with somebody in a leadership role, and you are not seeing, you are just seeing as a leader, you're just seeing the person as what you call a peg, a
Mm-hmm.
machine. You're not seeing the person as a human being. You expect them to work at this particular time, get back at work at a particular time, take lunch at this time, vacation at this. You don't, you know, and this is why I asked the question at the beginning. Could you really balance leadership with empathy? Because to me, the person who is in a leadership role has to be an empathetic person who understands. And what I find kind of challenging too, and is that there are people who may come through the ranks. They may have been on that employee level, work their way up. And suddenly, as they reach in a leadership role, they seem to have forgotten where they were. You know, they seem to have forgotten the people that helped them to get there. They seem to have forgotten they were one of those down there, because that's what the people down there, if you want to say that, will say about the leader who has risen to the top. He was one of us. Now he treats us like this, you know, or now she treats us like this. And you wonder, could you really balance leadership with empathy?
So here's the point. It comes back to messy again.
It comes back to messy.
It comes back to the messy piece, right? Leading, thinking about how do you balance the company goals with leading from an empathetic perspective. Mm-hmm. So how about if I tell a little quick story that started me down this path about thinking about it, and I wrote an HBR piece on it as well, sure, because there wasn't anything really out there. So 6 years ago, I got very sick, mm-hmm, and I have my own coaching practice, and I, at some point, so I had cancer, and everything is fine now 6 years later, nice, but there wasn't and I have my own business, right? And I had my clients, the companies I work in. And how do you lead from a business perspective and also an empathetic perspective when I think about those clients? Because this was really hard for me. There was one company who said, you know what? We can't wait for you to feel better. We have to find another executive coach to work with.
Oh, wow.
And I had another company who said, you know what, we're going to wait for you until you're better, you get through your surgeries. And wow, this got me to thinking about the balance of empathy and looking at the business, yeah, right? This is just a small microcosm of me, right? But then how do you really look at that from a larger perspective in an organization? And, so going back, right, to think about this, there really wasn't anything written about it. So what happens, when you have when somebody tells you that they have cancer, there's this piece of what I really had to focus on is, well, what's the process and steps to still be working with my clients? When do I need to take off and all of that? But the balance of the business and being empathetic. Yeah. So let's get back to the company that fired me, right? There's many emotions, Corinne, that go with this, right? And anybody can think about this too, you as a leader. I was, of course, very hurt at first, but then when I really thought about it, right, this company needed an executive coach now to work with this SVP. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I had to accept, mm-hmm, that was what was important for the business, mm-hmm, right? So it's that balance, mm-hmm, of that in terms of what's right for the company now, yeah, right? Versus, and also with the people, right? And you could also translate that too. You might have somebody that's very good at what they do, but they're a negative force within the department. Yeah. Well, you have to think about what's right for the company too, right? And part of this, when you think about the empathetic piece, is really sitting down and being transparent with somebody and saying, so what's going on? Mm-hmm. Ask them how they're doing. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's hard, and it feels uncomfortable sometimes to do that, to have that humanistic piece of it, but you have to get outside of your own box as a leader. and thinking about and putting yourself, it's so simple, right? I mean, when I say this, it sounds so simple, but really putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, but still balancing that it is a business.
Yeah. But they were firing you, or they fired you.
Yes.
And the way how they did it, I think it is hurtful. And you had to step outside of yourself to say, look, the company goals is more important. I don't really want to use the word more important, because it means it kind of sort of signifies that you are not. And you have a significant health issue which you could have died from. Things could have gotten worse. So it's not a matter, it is when these things hurt us, it is saying something about us within us. The question is, why is it hurting me? Why am I bothered by what they're saying? I am an employee. I mean, you have to have that conversation with yourself. I am an employee. They hired me to do a job. And I'm trying to have this conversation now as you told me the situation, as if I were you.
Yep.
So I am in a job, I'm an employee. I'm hired to do A, B, and C. This is a contractual arrangement. Yes, I am human. Yes, I have a health issue, but this is the contractual agreement that we had. And so me not being in a good place health-wise could impact the company and what I was hired here to do. So am I being selfish in thinking, oh, they need to really pay more attention to me and give up at the expense of what I agreed to do, the job, the A, B, and C? In other words, they should put more focus on me than they should on really what the company needs and what we agreed to. Remember, we have a contractual agreement. The contractual agreement didn't say, or I don't know if it said anything about your health. We will, no matter how your health is, we're going to keep you through thick and thin. I'm going to stay with you. We're married for life, kind of thing. It did not say that. So you have to step outside yourself and go back to the foundation and say, this is what we agreed to. So my health is my responsibility. It's my responsibility, it's not the company's. When I was negotiating this job, I did not bring that up in the discussion. They didn't bring it up. It didn't occur at the time. No fault of anybody's. But it's only when situations happen, just like you said, as you went through that experience, now you're thinking about it. How would other people feel? What is happening in the bigger perspective? Other people are going through this thing the same way. It doesn't have to be cancer, it could be anything else.
Yeah.
The challenges. And so you need to have that kind of conversation and step outside yourself to know, really, go back to the foundation, and really, it's not about you. We tend to always think it's about me. They're trying to hurt me. They don't like me. Me. And you need to find out what it is that's causing you to feel that hurt. It's a rejection. It's a rejection you're feeling, an abandonment at a time when you need the support the most. And probably at some point in your life, earlier in your childhood, you may have felt rejected or abandoned. And so this is why you're feeling that sort of rejection. But you have to step aside and look at it in an objective manner, and don't allow, as I would say to people, your ego to step in the way to think it's all about me, I. Am I correct in saying that? Is that a conversation that you had, or is that a conversation that employees or people who are working together should follow that kind of thinking? I don't know. I was just talking as if it were me,
Oh, no. And I Corinne, you give great context to the point of, it is not all about me all the time. And that's why I talk about the balance of leading and also being empathetic. Because, when I tell that story, people get shocked.
Yeah.
And I was initially shocked. I mean, is any,
yes,
we're all human. But I think that you bring up a fantastic point in that entitlement.
Yeah.
We're not and that everybody is replaceable.
Of course.
And so it does get to that business perspective. What's right for the business,
Mm-hmm.
but you always need to take care of the people as well.
Of
So
course.
how do you find that balance?
Balance. Yeah. Yeah.
And then people say to me, "Oh, well, what is the balance? Give me a percentage."
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know why this word keeps coming up for me today, Corinne, but it's messy.
Yeah.
There
It's
is
messy.
no
Mm-hmm.
right way
Mm-hmm.
to balance empathy and thinking about the business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do what's right in the moment for the business and for the person.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what came to me as I talked to you was this movie by Denzel Washington acted in it. I'm sure you probably might remember, where his son got ill. His only son, I think, got ill. He was running on the field and he ended up his heart. He could have died. He was playing baseball and he ended up getting a heart attack or something, and
Mm-hmm.
he needed a heart transplant. I can't remember the name of it, but his father tried every which way. His work, he realized that he was not covered. Nothing was there to help him to help his son. Nobody's helping him. He turned left, he turned right. The doctors are saying, well, we'll put you on a list. And he's like, what, a list? This is my
Yeah.
son's life here,
Right.
right? This is my son, my young son, my only child. And I mean, when push came to shove, he held up the hospital.
Oh, I remember. Yes, I
Yeah,
remember
he
this.
held up the hospital and was prepared to go to jail. He reached the point of having the gun. He wasn't planning to kill or hurt anybody. He just had to do something to get attention so that people would know what's going on with him, because he tried all the legal ways. He filled out forms. He did everything. He did everything, and nothing, you know. And he held up the hospital, and it reached a point that his plan was actually to kill himself, to to give his son his heart for him to live, because I mean, as far as he was concerned, he lived his life. And fortunately, I mean, I'm talking about it and emotions welling up in me. Somebody came through. The doctors, the head of the hospital, whatever, eventually found somebody who was a match, at the last minute, that the father didn't end up having to kill himself. I think he probably ended up being in jail for a little while, but, for whatever he did, but at least his son was alive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about empathy. People will go to whatever extremes, you know, um, especially for a loved one, whatever they have to do. And so the thing about it, and the world, you wonder, people see people act a particular way. You see it on the news, you hear of it, your neighbors, and you make your own judgments on these things without having the information. You have no freaking idea what is going on in these people's lives. And you can just stand aside and suddenly, without anything at all, you make a judgment. You don't know. You don't know. And you're not even willing to know or to dig deep to understand or to even have that compassion. And I find that is something that is missing significantly in the world. People are just caught up in themselves. It's all about me, I. And whether in a leadership role or not, come on. You cannot take the company with you. You cannot box it up and take it in the grave with you. You cannot do anything with the money on the other side should you go on the other side. It's people, and we are the ones that are here now for each other in this form. We have to strike a balance. As you said, what that balance is, I don't know. It's messy. It's messy. I don't know, and I really don't care. It's messy. What it is for me, act in the moment. Act in the moment. If you had come to me, and you said, hey, Corinne, I have cancer, you found out when you came to me and I'm your leader, I would say, hey, Anne, and this is the other conversation we could have had running through our head. How can I help you? What can we do? What support do you need from us? Because if I value you and you're a valuable member of the team, of the company, I am not going to suddenly see you as a peg. You're not supposed to be seen as a peg in the first place. How can I support you? But people suddenly just start to judge. The first thing that comes to their mind, oh, you're a liability. We can't have that. We have nothing in place. And I think it's more fair. It's because they just don't know how to deal with it, that the easiest thing to do is to let you go so that they don't have to face it. That's really what it is. They really don't know how to do it, and they're afraid that if they deal with it, oh my God, it opens the window for other people with other things to come to them. And it creates a whole set of stuff that they were not prepared for. So to deal with it, fire you, get rid of you. We don't have to deal with it. It eliminates other people having to come. We're not opening no window, no door, no crack for anybody else. It's fear.
It can be, but too, there is a certain point, and this is where it gets to the balance, right? And what I think that you bring up first, let me take a step back for a second. It's about leading from just the perspective of kindness, the word kind, and compassion. And, I think that you also bring up another good point. When I was doing research for my article, when, somebody comes to you with a big health crisis, right? We want to jump into action. We're going to, put a schedule together so that, you have dinners all the time, or we're going to put an email out about it. And compassion and kindness too gets to the point of sometimes people want to be private about these things. Mm-hmm. And so how do you meet somebody where they are in that process, right? You might want to rally the troops. You might want to have the troops rallied around you, but for some people, they want to be private about it. So that gets into the piece about empathy as well. Yeah. Really understanding what that person needs, not what you need and want. Yeah. Or what you think they need and want. And I think too, it gets to the last point in terms of the research when I was putting this article together, is that how are you transparent and create a plan so that the work gets done? Yeah. From, just a simple delegation plan or just a process plan of how everything will get accomplished and done.
Yeah, a shifting and and everybody pulling together. You see it on TV, you see it in everything else. This has happened. Okay, everybody needs to just shift things around in order to accommodate this, because if it were you or anyone else, we would do it for you. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that came to me too is the whole thing about wellness and having like a psychologist, counselor in the workplace. I find people are not having that wellness for their employees anymore, which is significant, which is very significant in order to have those sessions, those seminars, those frequent come in and see me. You have, it should be mandatory that each employee go and see this particular psychologist or counselor to talk. You never to know what can be revealed just by talking, what can happen. And the psychologist, through his or her experience, will be able to pick up something is going on and dig deeper and be able to help you. And like you say, the privacy, it may not even reach the point of being critical. You nab it, you nip it in the bud from very early on, because you may have picked it up, in the beginning, so it doesn't exacerbate itself and become, something throughout the entire organization. I'm not seeing the wellness. I'm not seeing the care and the love for employees in organizations. It's just come and work, come in at this time, leave at that time, and do the same thing over and over again till you die or till you retire or whatever. The wellness is not there. And I think you talk about balance and you talk about empathy. I think that particular aspect of an organization or function will help to create a balance if you have a wellness program or whatever they may want to call it, employee, EAP, whatever they call it, program.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah. Yes. To be able to have, and that should be a major function. And it also helps to know that employees are probably not satisfied where they are. They need to be moved, and unsatisfied don't necessarily mean in terms of finances. They're not challenged enough. They think they could offer more, probably they cannot offer as much, or they want something a little less, or whatever it may be. But at least you get to know, and you're able to put people in the right place to make them be the best that they can be. So it's not just a matter of challenging and health issues. It's to make people really, in the end result, feel happy about where they are and what they're doing, and go home happy, come in happy, be happy.
Right, right, right. And I think, I think, so I'm going to add on to this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
That, yes, that, company programs and in terms of wellness, but I think too, it is every person's responsibility to also think about that for themselves as well. Because one thing that I talk to a lot of folks about, that's very senior folks, is that it's almost like they're running a marathon and they're not stopping. If you look at, I don't know why this is coming into my head, but you look at a pro football player. They play a game. Then on Monday, they don't do anything. They go get their massages. They do whatever it is. Tuesday, they might do a light practice. Wednesday, they have another practice. Then they take a day off. I'm not advocating days off from work, but I'm advocating what are those things that are going to help replenish you? Yeah. Because a marathon runner does not run a marathon every single week. No. And that's what we do. Many senior executives do, right? And one thing I really advocate a lot, and this helps with positive intent, tying all the way back to the beginning, Corinne, that we were talking about, is simply meditating. And meditating for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't have to be anything more than that. And that helps from, when we get back to all the way to the beginning, right, is the positive intent piece. And meditation, or however you want to think about it for individually for each person, it could be a walking meditation, just walking out in the woods quietly is a meditation, right? Yeah. And that helps from the perspective of thinking positive, thinking about broader from an empathetic perspective, because there's so many great books out there. I mean, there's the Dan Harris book, there's all of those, that it helps take the edge off slightly, right? So that you don't react immediately to something that happens.
That's right. That's right.
And you think about that, and that ties back to empathy and thinking about the business. And all the way back at the beginning with gratitude.
That's right. It comes right back, right back. And yes. I want to be able to feature your website. So tell me what your website is.
Sure.
So give me a sec here. Let me see if I could pull that up. Hold 1 second. I'm trying to get a page here. Yes. So I think it's Anne Sugar. Is it right?
Exactly. So it's Anne, A-N-N-E, Sugar, SUGAR.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn as well. Every day I have a tremendous amount of articles and feeds that go out in terms of what are great things to learn, or an article that I think that's interesting or different. So I'm also there as well. You can take a look at my Harvard Business Review articles under Anne Sugar at harvardbusinessreview.com. You can see them as well. So that's the best way to reach me, or to see what I'm recommending from a reading perspective.
Beautiful. And I have you on the website here. And of course, the Let's Connect button is here so persons can connect with you on Twitter and LinkedIn. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, they could sign up for the newsletter, so that, of course, that helps to keep in touch. Yeah. Yes. And informed. Yeah. And let's just quickly hop across to the services. Let's see what's on there here. So you do executives, coaching, speaking, and of course, workshops. Beautiful. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And of course, the light bulb is here. So of course, people should have the light bulb showing up in their head when they talk with you. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you. The discussion has been really enlightening. And I want to round off by saying, and you can make your final comment on that, is that based on what you were saying, taking personal responsibility. Balance is not only a matter of pointing a finger at the company that you work for as if they're responsible for your joy and happiness and your balance. They have to look out for their side. You need to look out for your side, and the two shall meet between. So, you must take personal responsibility for your own wellness, health, balance within you. And while you're working at the company, of course, does their own thing as well. So, do what you need to do. Don't expect somebody externally to do it for you. But of course, I would always encourage your companies to take care of the employees, set up your wellness, your EAP programs to be able to nip things in the bud from early. So it helps in bringing, as we said, leadership and empathy at a place where everyone would be happy and balanced. Any final comment on that?
Oh, Corinne, you couldn't have, that was so beautifully said. I think the final comment that I would leave with that ties right back to the very beginning is there's the balance, as you said, about leading with empathy and thinking about the business. But how can you lead from a positive intent perspective?
Right, right. Exactly. It all comes back to being grateful, being thankful, and have that positive intent. You see how things always come full circle when you think about it?
It does. It does. It's
Well,
been fabulous talking to you, Corinne.
oh, yes. I really appreciate you being on my show. I thank you so much. And I want to wish you a great day and continue doing the good work that you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, and you as well. Thank you so much for having me on your show.